FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
First of all, he has been a very reliable pro-life vote in the House and in the Senate, but evangelicals, and not just evangelicals, but a lot of other conservatives, I don't think will ever forgive him for McCain-Feingold. They believe that it was an unconstitutional restriction of their right to free speech. And of course, the Supreme Court has now agreed with them on a large chunk of it in the Wisconsin Right to Life case, where they threw out portions of McCain-Feingold. But McCain is not comfortable talking in faith terms about his positions. And for instance, he's been attending a Southern Baptist church for more than a dozen years now. And his second wife and family are members of that church, but he himself is still an Episcopalian. And I think that, my experience of Episcopalians is that sometimes they are a little more uncomfortable talking about their faith. It's not that they don't have faith, it's just that in the church in which they grow up, it's just not something that they as readily do as evangelicals do. I think that McCain helped himself a lot in the Saddleback Civil Forum, and he helped himself even more by his vice presidential nomination. McCain is a reason a lot of evangelicals didn't vote for him in the primaries. Although a lot did, by the way. This myth that Mike Huckabee got all the evangelical votes. Mike Huckabee did not get a majority of evangelical votes in any primary until it was only him and McCain. In South Carolina, for instance, McCain got 45% of self-identified evangelical votes, and Huckabee got 27%. And the reason for that is that a lot of evangelicals are not only social conservatives, they're also economic conservatives, and they're also foreign policy conservatives, and they had problems with, Huckabee is really more like William Jennings Bryan. He's a strong conservative Christian who's a populist. But I think McCain helped himself when he picked Sarah Palin. As many of my constituents have said to me, look, he says he's going to have a pro-life administration, but how do we know? Because this guy's really unpredictable. He does really unpredictable things. He sort of goes along, and then all of a sudden he does something which is inexplicable from an evangelical perspective. The first and most important appointment in a prospective McCain administration is his vice presidential pick. And he hit a grand slam on that one. And so I think most of the, and the other thing, and this is missed by people outside the evangelical community, but my 85-year-old mother, who's not overly political, my 85-year-old mother said to me, she called me up on the phone and said, Richard, I really appreciate what Senator McCain said about his greatest moral failure. Now, I've heard
that
McCain...
was in the Saddleback Forum, and that was the failure of his first marriage.
The failure of his first marriage. Because I've heard him personally say, look, it was my fault, it's my greatest regret, I was impossible to live with when I came back from Vietnam, and the failure of my first marriage was my fault. But I've never heard him say it publicly. And for a lot of evangelicals, particularly evangelical women 45 and over, it meant a lot to them to hear him say, my greatest moral failure was the failure of my first marriage. The only better answer if you're divorced among evangelicals than that is the one Reagan gave when they asked him, well, so you're pro-family and you're divorced, and his response was, well, I didn't want the divorce.